and welcome to another episode of Culterra Products. Today we'll be discussing the orchid mix, and I'll be showing you how to repot an orchid. So the first thing, most store-bought orchids will come in a small, cheap plastic pot with a lot of moss, which is water-soaked, and it's alright for a short period, but it's not great for the long term. Orchid roots are very specialized organs, and they need, as well as water, they need airflow around them. And that's why you'll see that an orchid mix is a chunky mix of bark, pine, peat. It can be a variety of components, and we'll have a look at this one now. Bits of charcoal are also commonly included. If you have received an orchid as a gift from a store or recently bought yourself one, the first thing to do is enjoy the bloom. You don't want to disturb the roots while your orchid is flowering. These ones you can see have finished flowering, and the stalk from the flower is dying off here. They're still doing well, but the roots are coming out of the pot and they definitely look like they could do with a little bit more space and some fresh mix. So that's what we'll be doing today. So to start with repotting your orchid, what you want to do is gently remove it from the pot, not disturbing it too much. I'm going to put this old bark orchid mix into here. There we go. So an interesting thing about orchid roots is that healthy roots are always firm and usually silvery white in color. Only the growing tip of the root, as you can see here, for example, is very green. They do turn green when they're absorbing water, but you don't want them to be permanently green. That means they're too wet and at risk of rotting. If they're too wet, they aren't able to breathe. So once you've removed your orchid from its current pot, you want to cut off any black or deadened roots, anything that's rotting, and then you can stick him into his new pot. An orchid pot is also quite a specialized pot. This one you can see has quite big drainage holes at the bottom, and that's what you want. You literally want the water that you provide the orchid to flow right through and drain out the bottom. It should retain very little moisture. Right, so we're going to cut off our old flower stalk there at the bottom. So just going to trim these old stalks. And then any rotting roots, he's got a couple here, nothing too major. Let's have a look. For this process, you do want to be sure to use sterilized secateurs just to ensure that you don't transmit any disease to your orchid. Once you've removed all the dead black or rotten roots, we're going to place him into his new pot. And then the last step is to replace some of these good nutrients. Just want to make sure it gets in nicely to the bottom, so I'm going to give it a bit of a shake. And that's that. Quite simple, really. The last thing we're going to do is give our orchid a little bit of water. Now, how often you water your orchid does depend on the season, the type of orchid, if it's currently growing or if it's dormant, and also your specific conditions where you are based. Also important is how much sun your orchid's getting, and it should be a morning sun, something not too heavy, usually not a westerly sun. And then you can water your orchid every couple of days, maybe once a week or every 2 weeks in a cold season. Today, because we've just repotted him, I'm going to give him a decent amount of water. I'm going to use a jug. And you'll see that that water runs straight through there, just like it should. For weekly watering, a spray bottle works wonders for orchids. They love a little bit of moisture just on their leaves, not too much on the roots, and so I use a spray bottle every couple of days to keep my orchids happy. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you learned something and that you are now able to repot your orchids for many seasons of future blooms.